The Honourable Dr Nick Smith.
Mr. Speaker, this is a good practical bill that is going to allow New Zealand families to enjoy the spectacle of the Rugby World Cup being played on the opposite side of the world, and I commend the work that David Seymour has done in introducing this bill to the House, to Jackie Dean, the chair of the Select Committee, that's done a good job of knocking this bill into practical shape. I want to make a contribution both as a local MP but also as a member that strongly supports the pragmatism behind this bill. I do want to take issue with my colleague, the list member from Palmerston North, Jono Naylor, made some comments about the Manawatu rugby team. I want to remind him they're going to be cleaned out by the Tasman Marcos tomorrow night, and that while we on this side of the House agree on some things on provincial rugby, parochialism runs deep. And that actually runs to the core of the fact that rugby is one of the sports that binds. I tell you, the Tasman Marcos are in fantastic shape, and they are a great team. And I just warn colleagues from all around the House to watch out, particularly those from Taranaki, for the fins up team from the top of the south. But the underlying point, Mr. Speaker, is that rugby runs deep in New Zealand. It's good for our country. It gets people playing sport. It involves us celebrating our nation and what we excel at internationally. And what sort of killjoys are there in parties like the Greens that would oppose New Zealanders simply being able to get up early in the morning, to congregate at some of the sports bars across New Zealand and to be able to enjoy the spectacle of the Rugby World Cup? Actually, it speaks volumes about what a risk the Green Party is to practical legislation in this Parliament. Because the part that the Green Party on so many issues just gets it wrong is that they completely take a disproportionate view of risk. The comments from Kevin Hay that we can't pass this bill because there will be hordes of drunks coming out of sports bars at 8 a.m. in the morning and a threat to our school children. Come on, get a life. Our school children don't live such a sheltered life that they don't see people getting pleasure, getting excitement, and also getting depressed as a consequence of rugby sporting events. And Mr. Speaker, at the last Rugby World Cup that would occurred on the opposite side of the globe, I went to one of my local sports bars and the place was packed. Why were people there? Well, actually, they enjoyed the game more, and there was a sense of nationhood and camaraderie that does not exist when you sit at home behind your telly by yourself. And why shouldn't communities be able to get together to be able to enjoy their country participating in an international sport event in that sort of community way? And at the end of those games, and I can remember so well, the game against France at my local sports bar and leaving the venue, and everybody was in the doldrums because we'd been kicked out of the event. Did I see bad behaviour on the street? Did I see a whole lot of drunks out there actually causing harm? No, I saw a whole lot of ordinary New Zealanders just enjoying their own national sport, and why would we not want them to be able to do just that? In respect of how much bureaucracy we should impose, here's the real practical issue for some of the sports bars in Richmond, in Stoke and in Nelson who have wanted to host these games. As each of them have lodged applications with the licensing authority, because they're not dealing with it as a comprehensive issue, they've come to different views. And then you get into the unfairness as to, well, why should the Richmond sports bar be allowed to be open only for these hours as compared with the one in Stoke or the one in Nelson? The sensible thing with a bill such as this is that we can ensure that we take a consistent approach across the country and allow everybody to enjoy it rather than the nonsense of having hundreds of individual applications, going through licensing boards, driving up the sort of bureaucracy and red tape that drives average New Zealanders mad. And the thing I just cannot understand from the Green Party, why is it when it comes to alcohol, they want to take an extreme adverse risk approach and to say we're not prepared to accept any risk at all, and then it comes to cannabis and they want to legalise it and liberalise it at the opposite end of the spectrum. They're just, I'm sorry? No, I'm just simply saying to the member, for them on the one hand to say that they oppose this bill because the risk of the odd person misusing alcohol, where on the other hand the evidence is so compelling about the level of harm that's done from cannabis, and over again we hear from Green Party members an argument to liberalise cannabis law, and I say what a grossly inconsistent approach that the Green Party brings to this bill, and that's why I have great difficulty with the position of such extreme cautiousness around this sale and supply of alcohol during the Rugby World Cup bill. Mr. Speaker, I'm pleased the Select Committee has made the choice to enable all of the Rugby World Cup games to be enjoyed in this fashion. It is absolutely sensible, I say to Mr. Seymour, for you to allow the bar or the licensed premise to make the choice as to what games they want to host. I don't know whether there's large, maybe South African populations in the North Shore that the bars may choose to open there. In my area, I happen to have a large number of UK, and they may choose to use those games. Why should it be that Parliament has to overrule what choice there might be, let the individual proprietor make an assessment in their community about the level of interest, and on the basis of that, then decide as to whether they are going to host those games? The very last point I think we need to be real about is that for most upper income New Zealanders who want to enjoy the Rugby World Cup, many of them will have Sky TV and be able to enjoy the games. But actually, for lots of modest income people, Sky TV is a significant expense, and as a consequence, it is only through this bill that those people are going to be able to enjoy those games live, and that's why it also makes sense for those large number of New Zealanders who don't have Sky TV, who love rugby, and who want to be able to get together in their community. Mr. Speaker, the Select Committee has done a good job of providing logical protections to ensure that those licensed premises have to manage those facilities in a responsible way, that they have to take sensible precautions around noise control, around ensuring that if they are a dodgy premise that's had a bad record around licensing, that they don't get to use the provisions of this bill to be able to gain a licence. I simply again commend the member, David Seymour, for sponsoring this bill, for the work that he has done with other political parties, and I'm still amazed that a party like the Greens would make themselves look so out of touch with ordinary New Zealanders that they would oppose a sensible bill such as this that is simply about New Zealanders being able to enjoy their national sport.